Hi everyone, and welcome to this masterclass on human design basics for really understanding your chart, understanding how to be authentically as you according to your chart, and to start moving you in that direction of life success. So I found out about human design about 2 years ago, and since then I've really just loved exploring, going deeper, working through the levels of qualifications and just learning to experiment with it for myself, and actually as a projector being invited to share it with others as well, and I really enjoy doing that. So this is a video of me following my joy and sharing a little bit about human design from the basics point of view, and from what I feel is really, really valuable to know in the beginning that you can start experimenting with straight away that can have a big impact. So what is human design? It's a self-knowledge system. It's a way of understanding yourself on a deeper level based on your aura and your energy. The word they use in human design is aura mechanics. And it's a synthesis of ancient and modern sciences. So the ancient sciences like the chakra system, the Kalaba, the I Ching, they have a part, as well as modern sciences, understanding, our DNA and conditioning and quantum physics. And then basically what I love about it is there's no right way. A human design teacher shouldn't tell you how you are or who you are. It's for you to have this map, this chart, to really experiment with and explore for yourself how it shows up for you, and how it works for you. Because ultimately, nobody else is your authority. Nothing knows in this universe better than another part of you what's best for you. And experimenting with that and using your human design to follow your authority and learn about yourself is a really powerful way of stepping into your power and your purpose. And if you have a look at some of my other videos and share about my journey learning about myself through human design, as well as some other things as well. So when we look at the human design chart, there are lots of things in there. There is so much depth that you can go into. But what's really, really important to understand in the beginning in particular is your type and strategy. That is kind of the biggest influence, if you like. So understanding that above anything else will really help you when you start to experiment and live with that. Then it's your inner authority. And then it's understanding your centers. So all the little shapes that run through your chart, they're the centers, the energy centers. Then maybe your channels, profile, and gates. Now, again, this is just for this masterclass. There may be other things in your chart, because every chart is completely different and completely unique. There may be other things that are like big and influential, or like mini earthquakes, if you like, in terms of energy that sort of show up for you. Other things such as motivation, particularly if you're a projector, can play a big part. Lots of stuff. So but then we're really getting into advanced human design with those. So today we're going to look at these top three, because they are the ones that will really start to shift things for you the more you play around with it and you're open to it. What I would suggest before going further with this masterclass is that you have your human design chart. So if you don't have that yet, or you don't know what it is, then I recommend you download that. You can get it for free. Jovian Archive is one of the popular places to get yours, and just so that you can see what I'm talking about and you can reference it to yourself and your own chart. So this is actually my chart here. I'm an emotional projector, which you'll find out a little bit more about that in a second. So these are the four main types. We have generators and manifesting generators. They make up around 70% of the population. We have projectors, which are around 20%, manifestors, which are about 9%, and reflectors, which are about 1%. And this is your type. So there are four But if you count the manifesting generator, instead of just in the generator category, there's 5 types. And this is how the aura works for those types. So a generator has a very open aura. It's enveloping and it's attracting. And how a generator can tell whether they're on or off track is, are they feeling frustration versus satisfaction? So when they are acting against their type, this is for manifesting generators as well, they will feel frustration. When they are acting and living in a way that's true to their type, the way that they're designed, they will feel satisfaction. And they're actually here to experience satisfaction, satisfying work, etc. Projectors have a very synergistic relationship with generators. Well, all the types really, but particularly generators. Projectors are here. Their aura is about focusing and absorbing. So they're really here for the other person to help provide insights and guidance based on the energies of the others, which is why there's a wonderful, beautiful relationship between generators and projectors, where they can really guide and support the generator based on how their energy interacts with it. The key is, though, that the projector is recognized and invited, which we'll talk about in a second. And so a projector can tell whether they are off track, if they are feeling bitterness. So for me as a projector, this really shows up in a way that's like, why is this happening? You're looking around and it's like things seem to be working out for everyone else and not you. And it leads to that, like, almost like a jealousy, kind of bitter, like feeling that something's not fair, or it's not right, or it's not going right for you, and why, and there must be something wrong with me, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas actually really projectors are here to experience success when they're recognized and they're providing guidance for the right people, and they're here to be successful and really feel that success. Manifestors are here to really initiate and to get things moving, get things started. They have a repelling aura, and they can tell whether they're on track or not, whether they are experiencing anger or more freedom and peace. And then the reflectors, their aura is really resistant and sampling. So it's literally taking in and sampling the environment. If they are off track, they will be feeling more disappointment. But if they are living true to their design, they will feel that sense of surprise and delight in their environment and joy. So we're going to break down each type. So have a little look at your chart. And if it says that you are a manifestor, you will have some sort of channel that goes direct from a motor, which basically means an energy center with lots of energy, to the throat. Manifestors will not have this one colored in. This is the sacral center, the life force energy center. So they are not energy beings like a generator. So they will always have this bit not colored in and a direct channel to the throat from an energy center, such as the emotions or the ego. So manifestors are here to initiate action and creation. The really key thing for a manifestor is that they inform. That is their strategy. See here, it says strategy to inform. If a manifestor has an idea and they just go for it, often they can be faced with resistance from people around them, because their energy when they go for something, particularly when it's correct, is really powerful. And that can cause people around them to push it back, to try and squash it, because it's uncomfortable for them if they haven't been informed. And this is often what causes a lot of pain and conditioning for a manifestor. So when they have informed, anybody who might be impacted by the idea of or initiation that they want to take action on and create, then it's going to flow, and the right people are going to be there to support them with that action. So interestingly about a manifestor is they are the only type who doesn't need to wait for an outside force to recognize the right timing. So every other type, we have to have some sort of outside influence first, whereas a manifestor can act directly on an idea and use their inner authority So this one, for example, this manifestor is emotional. Use that inner authority to decide whether it's the correct timing and the correct idea to act upon. If it is based internally, not externally, then they can go and they can create that thing as long as they inform. And as they do that, they will experience more freedom and peace, more of their purpose, and they will create the creations that they're here to create, and make ideas happen. So this is why I find that human design is so helpful for business owners and entrepreneurs, because it really shows you how you can basically act in your business in terms of reaching success, growth, or the way that you're meant to serve and experience in the world. So often we're taught or conditioned to just go out there and make it happen, but actually that's only correct for a manifestor, about 9% of the population. So that's often why you might see some people that works for, but it might not work for yourself if you're not a manifestor. So basically, for a manifestor, when you get an inspiring idea, use that inner authority to know when it's the right timing to act on it. And we're going to talk about inner authority in a minute. So this will be where it says your inner authority. The challenges manifestors have is when they inform and create, other people might not like their idea. They might judge it, and they might kind of shut them down and judge their creative impulse. And that often happens to manifestor children, so that they learn not to initiate on those ideas so much as an adult. And that's where the deconditioning is really important. So let's have a look at generators and manifesting generators. I will explain the difference between the two. So this is an example of a generators chart. Generators and manifesting generators, you are here to respond to life. So the cool thing about this is that the universe, God, the world, life, however you want to, whatever you believe, however you feel it is, will give you things to respond to in your life. And when something comes to you, you then use your inner authority to decide whether it's something that's correct for you to act on and follow through with or not. So generators are always going to have the defined sacral. Generators and manifesting generators, you're always going to have this square here coloured in, and that is the life force energy, the generated energy. And that's why it says here you have a powerful source of energy, especially when you're in the right work. So generators are really here to find the right work that gives them joy and satisfaction. And when they do that, they create amazing things, and they have lots of energy to be able to do it. But the key is, because they have lots of energy, they can often push through and they can keep going, and they can often do that in the wrong direction. So they end up feeling frustrated or sometimes angry for a manifesting generator. And so the challenge can sometimes be waiting to respond to what life brings to them. And they've often been conditioned, like here where it says the challenge is conditioned to go out there and make things happen instead of waiting for some sort of confirmation from their environment first. So in terms of what might come to you in your environment to respond to, this might be like an advert, it could be from social media or TV, it could be from a conversation you've had with somebody, it could be a sign, a literal signpost. It can be anything in your environment that points towards that idea or something. Maybe you've not even thought about it before, but it's come to you to respond to. And then you would check in with your inner authority as to whether that's the right thing for you to move forward with. So we'll talk about the inner authority in a minute. Manifesting generators tend to be even more fast moving than generator. And so they also should inform when they're acting on something after they've responded to it. So something's come in from your environment, perhaps you see a post on Facebook that gives you something to respond to that you should do in your business, or you could do in your business, and then check in with your inner authority. So this person, for example, here, has sacral inner authority. So we'll talk about this in a minute, but that's like your gut response, if you like. So they would check in with that as to whether it's correct thing for them to do. And then they would inform who's going to be impacted by that action. And that will lead to that feeling of success and moving in the right direction. Feel free, guys, if you have any comments or questions with this, please pop them in the comments. We'll always aim to get back to any questions and comments as soon as I can. So now moving on to projectors. Projectors can have quite a tough time because they are conditioned like manifestors and generators, and their energy works really, really differently, which is why possibly, you know, in the beginning when I found out I was a projector, I can see some stuff worked for me and some stuff didn't in my past, and it takes a while to decondition from that, and I'm actually still in that process. Everything when you learn your human design, it can help you, point you in the direction, but we have so much conditioning that pulls us back the other way. So projectors are really here to manage, guide and direct others. They have that natural aura which has that insight. So for me, when I look into my coaching and how the things I've kind of been drawn to and the questions that people have asked me, I can see that playing out. I can see that natural insight. But the key is you have to be recognized, asked or invited to be able to offer that insight, because otherwise it just won't be heard or experienced in a positive way for that person. It has to be for the right person, which is why you need to wait. And that's why it says wait for the invitation. So invitations can come in forms of someone asking you a question, someone engaging with you, someone saying, oh, you should write a book, or you should, or I think you'd be great at this. That is the invitation of someone recognizing your talent, your energy, your skill, your genius. And that's when you can then share those insights. Because they are also a non-energy being, projectors will not have this sacral defined. And there's also so many different types of configurations. Like I said, this is mine, but there will be many different ones. You could be a projector that is completely white from the head down, or many other ways. So don't let that put you off if you think, oh, I'm a projector, but it looks nothing like that. Every chart is completely different. The invite is really for big things in life. So you don't need an invitation to go to the supermarket or to, you know, initiate something like going for coffee with a friend or doing things that feel good and inspiring to you. You know, generally what's really healthy for a projector is to follow their joy. But you do need the invitation for anything to do with your business or your work. So invited to work for a certain company, invited into a certain position, or invited and recognized by clients and people that want to work with you. It's incorrect for a projector to initiate without first getting that invitation and then and then using their inner authority to see if it's correct for them. So it's the big things like relationships and work and where to live. So how different is that to how we're conditioned though? Or we're conditioned to say, oh, I want to move house. So then we take action to move house rather than waiting for an invitation or a recognition of where to move and how to move. So it's very different, and it can be very challenging to wait, especially because, you know, we need to bring things in like money and and resources and things to be able to survive, and that was one of the challenges that I really faced once I started trying to experiment and live as a projector. That really slowing down and waiting for that recognition, it can take a long time, and that can be really challenging. They're natural guides for generators and manifestors, or all energy types really, but generally generators and manifesting generators, to help them best use their energy and talents. Another trap that the projector falls into is because they are not an energy being and they don't have that energy from the motor to the throat like a manifestor, they can burn out. But because they can absorb and amplify the energy from the generators and people around them, they can act like they've got loads of energy and they can keep going, but they will burn out very quickly or in a hard way if they continue to do that without resting and making sure that they're only acting when they have energy. So it's really important for a projector to rest. They're really only designed to work short hours in the day. But when they do and they are recognized, they have lots of energy and insight for those few hours. And again, it's just so different to how we're conditioned, isn't it? So there's challenges there. But basically everybody's conditioned to work hard, hustle, keep up and keep going. And so that's a real challenge for the projector because they're not designed to be able to do that. They can do so for a while, but they will burn out heavily. All types can burn out. A generator or a manifesting generator in the wrong work will also burn out, or if they push too hard, and the same for the other types, but it's particularly intense for a projector. They're also highly sensitive to the energy around them. Obviously that helps them provide the insight for the other person, but they can struggle with that, and they can struggle to be heard and recognized because they have to be recognized, and when they're not, it can be very painful, and often a projector can learn to try and force the recognition because it's painful to not be recognized rather than waiting for the right recognition. And I can relate. So if you want to find out more about my story, you can check out one of my other videos. A reflector, I don't know why this slide is so much bigger than the others. So for reflectors are rare, but it's useful to know about all the other energy types as well as your own, because you're there interacting with you all the time. And it's really helpful to know people that you're close to, family, etc., so that you know how best they operate, and your kids as well. Reflectors are completely open. Can you see they have no coloured in centres whatsoever? So that means that all their centres are open and they are here to reflect the environment around them and to show that environment whether it's healthy or not. And so it's really important for a reflector to be in the right place with the right people. If they're not, they're reflecting a toxic environment, and that can be quite uncomfortable for them. So it's important for them to move through finding the right environment and the right people to be around. It's generally because they are so open, it's what feels good to them that is right for them. The challenge with a reflector is that they do not have an inner authority. They have no defined energy centers. So their authority comes from the lunar cycle. So this basically means as the moon moves through a 28-day cycle, the energy also moves through 28 gates through the reflector. And as it does that, it brings with it different changes in definition, which basically means in their energy, in how they feel, in the gates and the qualities of them that show up. And so for a reflector, it's about noticing, maybe they get an idea, maybe it's something to respond to. It doesn't so see how it says wait a lunar cycle, they'll have an idea or they'll have something to respond to or whatever it is, then they have to wait 28 days to see how that feels over the 28 days, and also to soundboard, so use the environment around them to see if it shows up as correct or not. So that might be talking it through with different people and using them as a sounding board to hear back how that feels. And it's a really slow process to get an overall theme as to whether something's correct or not over those 28 days. Once they have that confirmation after the 28 days, they don't need to wait anymore or anything like that. They can just go and do it. So the challenges with a reflector, again, like a projector, they don't know when enough is enough, and they can overwork because they don't have the same energy system as the generators do, and they're designed to be deeply conditioned by environment. However, it's not as intense as the conditioning for other types with open centers. So we're going to talk about our centers in a minute, but basically when you have a white center, it means that that's where you're being conditioned and you're amplifying the energy from others around you. When it's coloured in, it means that it's a bit more consistent for you, and you can rely on it. Sometimes it gets distorted by conditioning still. We don't recognise it, we cover it up, but generally it's the energies there is consistent. So reflectors are actually designed to be deeply conditioned through all of their centres, and that's so that they can reflect the world around them. And so the benefit of a reflector really is to be able to have an important impact. In fact, I think it says this where my little face is, a strong force for peace and prosperity on the planet. So they can have that impact to really reflect the environment and show where it's healthy or not. And so because of that, their open centers and their conditioning in their open centers are not as intense as they are for other types in their open centers. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So these are the different types of decision-making or inner authority. So apart from the reflector, like I just spoke about, which is supposed to use their environment and people around them as a sounding board over those 28 days. So sacral, you can only have sacral inner authority if you are a generator or a manifesting generator, and you don't have a defined emotional center. So the sacral center is that square here. Okay, so if that's colored in and you don't have the emotional center colored in, your emotional one, this one here is white, but you have this colored in, you will be sacral, and you'll be a manifesting generator or a generator. The sacral is the gut response. Now, here's the key with any inner authority and any decision making that's correct for us. It's never in the mind. So some people will have defined heads and ajnas up the top there, so they'll have a lot going on in their mind. And our mind often tries to make logical decisions for us, but nobody is designed to make decisions using their mind. So the sacral is that gut response that people talk about. It can often sound like a uh-huh or an so when you're making the decision, ask yourself yes or no questions, or ask someone else to ask you the yes or no questions. And you'll get like a guttural uh-huh, and it might be like that, like a sound. It could be other generators and stuff have spoken to me about it and said it can be like almost like a physical pull towards it, if it's correct, or a push away if it's a no. It can be like right in the belly button, like a push or a pull, or it might just be like an inner feeling of yes, excitement around the gut, or like oh no. So that's how it shows up. So it's really worth practicing with that, and you can do this with anything. I coached a few people who are sacral who've tried it with what's best to eat, and they ask themselves yes or no question, like, is this correct for me to eat right now? And they get that sacral so it's really, really helpful, and often our mind overlooks it, so really, really useful to practice. The splenic inner authority, you can only be a splenic inner authority if you are a certain type of projector. So this is, the spleen is the triangle on this side here. And this is very instinctual, it's very intuitive, and it's like our survival response. And so the splenic authority can be really quiet at first, and it takes practice, and it's a very in the moment intuitive knowing of yes or no. So it takes practice. The emotional center, so about 50% of the population will have emotional inner authority, which is interesting because so many of us have been conditioned away from our emotions. The emotional being will have highs and lows in an emotional wave, and people around them who are absorbing and amplifying that because they're not emotional find it very uncomfortable, and they have conditioned it to be squashed or told that your emotions are inappropriate, and only feeling the good emotions are good, and So it's really useful to know, right, that if you are emotional and you have this emotional center defined, that actually your emotions are going to go through highs and lows, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong. It doesn't mean there's something bad's happening. It's just how your energy works, and you can use that energy flow to feel what's correct for you. And so it has to be quite a slow process. And this is one of the biggest challenges that most emotional beings have, is that we are so used to acting on an impulse based on how we feel. I can look back in my life and see so many situations and decisions that I made based on an emotional impulse that probably weren't right. So taking a time, at least 24 hours, to feel how that decision feels over the full emotional wave. And again, it takes practice, it takes slowing down, which is hard, particularly for a manifesting generator. So next we're going to move on to ego. Again, this could be a projector or a manifester. And the ego is really about, the ego is this center here, so the heart center, or it's also called the will center or the ego center. And if this is your inner authority, it's really about being clear about what you want. So knowing what you want and having that inner authority of, is that what you want? And then you have the energy to act and push through on it. Self-projected is would only be for a certain type of projector, and this is where it's coming from the self. So the center, in the center here, this diamond is the center for identity, direction, and love. And this center, this inner authority is coming from that inner sense of self. And so what's really helpful for a self-projected projector is to talk through with someone as a sounding board the decision, and to see how that sounds when they hear it back. And it's exactly the same for a mental projector. They need to get it out so they can experience it and see it projected into that someone else, and then they can make that decision from that place and from how they've experienced it in that other person. So looking at the centers then, this is also so helpful to know, because your energy centers are either where you've been heavily conditioned, and that might have caused some pain and stuff in the past, and also just understanding where the energy isn't yours is so helpful. So at the top is the head center. This is a pressure center for figuring things out, mental pressure for answering questions. And so someone with a defined head is providing inspiration that someone with an open head is absorbing and amplifying. So if you've got an open head like myself, which basically means it's white, it's not colored in, then you're going to be absorbing all the questions and all the inspiration from those people with defined heads. So the key is really figuring out and knowing what's yours and what's not, what idea is yours, what questions are yours to answer. The ajna is around conceptualization, so beliefs and certainty and things like that. And so when you are defined here, people will not be able to change your mind. You'll be certain around certain things, and you won't be persuaded away from that. If you have an open ajna, then you are more open around beliefs, or but it can lead to you being trying to prove that you're certain in things. You don't need to prove that you're certain, you're just absorbing and amplifying from other people if you're white here. The throat center is the center for manifestation and communication. It doesn't mean that if it's white here that you can't manifest or communicate. It just means that people with an open throat might have a little bit more trouble being heard. And so when they feel safe in certain environments for people to hear them, they might talk a lot. The difference between a defined throat would be very consistent in the way that they speak when it's colored in. When it's white, you can speak in ways that will be heard differently by different people. So it's actually kind of cool. But it's just making sure that when you're speaking that you're invited to speak, and then you'll really be heard. So the G center, center for self. So if you're white here, often these people can struggle with understanding who they are and what direction to go in, and well, their identity is almost. And so they really fit in. They pick up the identity of people around them with a defined center. So they fit in with lots of different groups. And so if you're open here, don't worry that you maybe don't feel like you know yourself that well. It's kind of meant to be that way, and you're meant to be able to be open and flexible in that way, and blend in and fit in with different groups of people. If you're defined here, you have a more consistent sense of self. The heart or the ego or the will center is your center for willpower. It's also the center of self-worth. So if you're defined here, often your willpower can help you power through with things, but sometimes it can help you power through with the wrong things, which is why it's really important to listen to your inner authority first. If you're open here and you're white here, it can be very intense because it's around conditioning on self-worth and whether you feel valuable or not. And I know that I have a completely open will center, which I can see a lot of past wounding that I've had to work on myself with that, and it still shows up. So it's good to know that when you doubt your self-worth, it's because you've been conditioned that way and you're picking up other people's energies. Same with the solar plexus, the emotional center. If you're open here, the emotions that you're feeling are absorbed and amplified from other people, and they're distorted. And so that's why it's very, very uncomfortable. And you can walk into a room and you can feel people's emotions. It doesn't mean that if you're defined here, you're not empathetic or feeling other people's emotions. You just feel it through other open centers. Because I felt like I was a very empathetic person. I was very, very sensitive to the energies of others. And it kind of led to me wanting to coach and help people. So in a way, I was surprised to find that my solar plexus was actually defined, but it's defined with deep waves. So I have a high highs, low lows. And now I know that, I'm aware of it, so I don't fight it. And in exactly the same way, when you're feeling intense emotion and you're white here, you don't need to figure out why you feel so bad or try and escape it. It will move through you. It's just that you're picking it up from someone else's and it's not yours. So it's really, really helpful to know. The sacral center is that energy center that we spoke about, the life force energy. It's the center for families and life and sexuality and things like that. And so basically, if you're open here, you will burn out easily and you don't have that consistent energy. So it's just good to know that it's really healthy and important for you to rest when you feel that you don't have energy for something and you're tired, and that's going to be best for you. Don't push through. When you've got that sacral, you can push through, but you just want to make sure that you're pushing through with the correct things, and you will find that you have energy for the right things. The spleen center is our center for intuition and instincts and fears. So it's if it's open here, you're absorbing and amplifying the fears of everyone around you. This was a big thing for me to learn, because I'd struggled from anxiety in the past. You'll see that from other videos in my channel. I help people with anxieties now, and bringing the human design piece in is so helpful, because it's just understanding what those fears are, where they've come from, and that they're actually not yours. And if you have a defined spleen, knowing the gates on the spleen and the fears that might pop up for you can help you navigate them so that they don't hold you back. And then the root center is the pressure to act, the pressure to do things. So if it's defined, you have adrenaline impulses that are consistent. So it doesn't mean that the adrenaline's constantly on. It just means that it will come in impulses in a consistent way for you. If you're open here, it can be really intense. It can feel like a lot of pressure to act and to do things. And so often people with a white root center will keep going, will constantly will not let themselves have time for play and relaxing, because of that constant pressure to act and to do more. And so just sitting with that and understanding and knowing that that's not your energy, and there is nothing more that you need to do, because really it will never be enough, and that you're just absorbing the adrenal boost from someone else. It's really good to know. And so this is why understanding your energy centers are really, really helpful, because you can navigate what's your energy, what's not your energy, you know, past wounds, where you need to decondition and heal a little bit more, so that these things don't basically pull you too much off track or aren't too challenging for you. So on that note, let me just go back a second. No. So if you found this beneficial and you would like more from me, there's a couple of invitations for you. You can connect with me and have a chart reading where we'll go really deep into your own chart. So if you'd like to do that, you can scan here, or you can send me an email. There's a little bit of an offer on that at the moment. So you're going to get a full 90 minutes, which is where you can go really deep, and that's where we can look into the things, you know, that are important to you at the moment. Say you're growing a business, we can look at how your chart is going to, and the things you need to know about your chart that will help you in business, for example. And then the other offer is I'm starting a Living Your Design membership. So this is going to be a small group program where we look at breaking down the human design chart and really helping you decondition in those areas and learn and practice with tools and coaching to help you really live it and really embrace it and really understand it on a deep level. And so the invite is, if you would like to be part of that, you can have your first month on me, which is incredibly generous of me, and it launches in July. So send me an email if that is something you would like more information on and you would like to be part of that. So that's where we look into, you know, for example, looking back at your energy centers, go a little bit more detail into each energy center, how it might affect you, whether you're open or defined, and then deconditioning from all the stuff that's in the way with all areas of your chart. And we'll go deeper into other areas of chart as well, like channels and motivation and the arrows, and there's so much. And also understanding the direction of humanity as well in terms of our global cycles. So basically, don't let that overwhelm you. If you are curious, pulled towards this, your inner authority says yes, then jump in. If not, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to stay in contact, and send me any questions or anything that you would like, you know, more videos on, or anything. If you feel that you've benefited, please let me know. And I hope that you have a wonderful week and a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for watching.